The storm came without warning, turning Blackwood National Forest into a maze of shadows and howling wind. Ranger Mike Holden was just finishing his patrol when his headlights caught them. A woman and child, drenched and trembling at the edge of an overgrown trail. Their clothes were torn, faces streaked with mud, and something else Mike recognized all too well after 20 years in law enforcement: raw fear. The woman clutched her daughter with white knuckles, eyes darting to the darkness behind them. When Mike approached, she flinched away. "Ma'am, you're safe now," he said. But even he wasn't sure that was true. What exactly were they running from in these woods? Could Mike really protect them from whatever danger lurked in the shadows? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The rain hammered against the windows of the ranger station as Mike Holden guided the woman and child inside. 20 years in law enforcement, 15 as a city cop and 5 as a ranger, had taught him to read people. These two were running from something dangerous. "Let me get you some dry clothes," he said, voice deliberately steady. The Forest Service kept emergency supplies for lost hikers. "The bathroom's through there." The woman, she still hadn't given her name, nodded slightly, her arm never leaving her daughter's shoulder. The girl couldn't be more than 8, with dark hair plastered to her pale face. Mike busied himself with the electric kettle, giving them space. At 53, he'd chosen this posting for its solitude after Claire's death. Blackwood National Forest sprawled across 600,000 acres of dense pine, rugged mountains, and hidden valleys, perfect for a man looking to escape painful memories. When they emerged, the woman wore a Forest Service sweatshirt that hung to her knees, the child drowning in a similar adult-sized shirt. They accepted steaming mugs of hot chocolate without making eye contact. "I'm Mike," he offered, sitting across from them at the metal desk. "Blackwood Station Chief." The woman's eyes darted to the window, then the door. "Sarah," she finally said. "This is Lily." Mike nodded, noting the hesitation before her name. "Probably not her real one. Whatever you're running from," he said carefully, "you're safe here tonight. Storm's too bad for anyone to be searching these roads." Sarah's eyes flashed with momentary panic. "We're not—" "You don't need to explain," Mike interrupted. "But those clothes were torn before the rain got you. And you were half a mile from the nearest marked trail." The girl, Lily, looked up from her hot chocolate, eyes suddenly alert. "Are the bad men coming here?" she whispered. Sarah squeezed her daughter's shoulder. "No, baby. We're safe tonight." The word "tonight" hung in the air. They were planning to leave at first light. Mike rubbed his gray, stubbled chin. Protocol required reporting all suspicious incidents to the county sheriff. 2 frightened people in torn clothes qualified. But something held him back. "You two need rest. There's a bunk room through that door. Lock it from the inside if you want." As they disappeared into the small room with twin metal bunks, Mike pulled his worn leather journal from his desk drawer. For 5 years, he'd recorded everything from bear sightings to weather patterns in its pages. It had become his confidant, holding observations about the forest and reflections on his life before. He opened to a blank page and began to write. April 18th. Storm worse than predicted. Ridge trail likely impassable until cleared. Found woman and child on north section of Blackwood Creek Trail. Clear signs of distress. Decision to provide shelter without reporting. Claire would say I'm getting involved again. She'd probably be right. A crack of thunder shook the windows. Mike closed the journal, sliding it back into the drawer. Outside, the forest disappeared behind sheets of rain. His flashlight beam from earlier, the only light that had penetrated that darkness for miles. Deputy Ranger Jessica Chen wasn't due until morning. Until then, it was just him, 2 frightened strangers, and whatever danger followed them to his quiet corner of the world. In the distance, headlights appeared briefly on the access road before vanishing again. Probably nothing. The road led nowhere but here. Still, Mike checked the position of his service weapon in its holster. He'd left city police work because he couldn't save Claire. He couldn't save everyone. That lesson had cost him everything. Mike glanced at the closed bunkroom door. He didn't need more guilt to carry. But he also couldn't turn away a frightened mother and child on the darkest night of the year. The radio crackled with the evening check-in from the southern station. Mike answered with the standard, "All clear," his first deliberate lie in 5 years of forest service. Whatever was happening, he was now part of it. For better or worse. Morning arrived with lingering rain and low clouds clinging to the pine-covered ridges. Mike had slept poorly in his office chair, one ear listening for sounds of trouble. He stretched his stiff back, the old shoulder injury from his police days, complaining. The door to the bunk room remained closed. He put coffee on and radioed Jessica that he'd handle morning patrol alone. The less his deputy knew about their guests, the better. When Sarah finally emerged, her eyes showed the same exhaustion. Lily followed close behind, thumb in mouth, a gesture that made her seem younger than Mike had first estimated. "There's cereal," he offered. Gesturing to the small kitchenette, Sarah nodded gratefully but spoke in a whisper. "We shouldn't stay. We've already put you at risk. The roads will be bad after the storm," Mike countered. "At least eat something first." While Sarah poured cereal for Lily, Mike unfolded a topographical map on his desk. "Where are you headed? Maybe I can suggest a route." Sarah's expression shuddered immediately. "It's better if you don't know." The radio crackled and all three of them jumped. Jessica's voice came through, unusually tense. "Mike, we've got visitors. County Sheriff's vehicle and 2 black SUVs at the Access Road checkpoint. They're asking about a woman and child. ETA, your location 15 minutes. Mike glanced at Sarah, who had gone pale. "Copy that," he responded, keeping his voice casual. "Any details on why they're looking?" "Something about potential witnesses to an incident in Riverdale," Jessica replied. "Seems like a big response for a simple inquiry." Sarah was already gathering their few belongings. "We have to go now," she whispered urgently. Mike held up a hand. "Wait, going out there without a plan will get you caught immediately. They'll have the roads covered." He turned back to the radio. "Just stall them if you can. As for identification paperwork, say I'm out on patrol." "Copy that," Jessica replied, confusion evident in her voice. Mike pulled open a drawer and removed a set of keys. "There's a fire service road that runs behind the station. My personal Jeep is parked in the maintenance shed. It has 4-wheel drive and a full tank." Sarah looked at him with disbelief. "Why are you helping us?" Before Mike could answer, Lily tugged at her mother's borrowed sweatshirt and held up a piece of paper. It was a drawing done with the station's few colored pencils, stick figures running from men, colored entirely in black. The black figures held what were unmistakably guns. Mike met Sarah's eyes. "That's why." Moving efficiently, Mike filled a backpack with emergency supplies, first aid kit, water purification tablets, protein bars, a flashlight. The Forest Service cabin on Black Rock Ridge isn't on any public maps. It's stocked with basics, food, propane, medical supplies. He scribbled directions on the back of a Forest Service pamphlet. "It's 5 miles up this unmarked trail. Stay there while I figure out what's happening." Sarah took the paper with trembling fingers. "I don't understand." "You're risking your career, maybe worse." Mike glanced at Lily's drawing again. "I've spent 5 years hiding from the world in these trees. Maybe it's time I remembered why I wore a badge in the first place." He pressed the Jeep keys into Sarah's palm. "There's a burner phone in the glove compartment. One number programmed, mine. Call only in emergency." Through the window, dust rose from the access road. "Vehicles approaching. Go now." The shed door opens manually. Once you're on the fire road, it's hidden by trees for the first mile. Sarah hesitated, then shocked him by quickly embracing him. "Thank you," she whispered. Lily slipped her small hand into Mike's for a moment. "Are you a good man like in stories?" she asked solemnly. The question caught Mike off guard. "I'm trying to be," he answered honestly. As they slipped out the back door toward the maintenance shed, Mike tucked Lily's drawing into his shirt pocket. Then he poured himself fresh coffee and prepared to lie to whoever was coming up his road. Sheriff Davis was a heavy-set man with 30 years on the force and a perpetual sunburn. Mike had always found him reasonable, if unimaginative. Today he wasn't alone. "This is Agent Phillips," Davis said, gesturing to a trim man in an expensive suit that seemed out of place in the rustic station. "Federal investigation. Woman and child, potential witnesses in an interstate case." Mike kept his expression neutral as he shook their hands. The two men in tactical gear lingering by the black SUVs outside weren't introduced. Haven't seen anyone, Mike said. Storm kept me busy with downed trees. What case are we talking about? Phillips smiled without warmth. Classified, I'm afraid. Mind if we look around? It wasn't really a question. Mike gestured casually. Help yourself. Coffee's fresh if you want some. While Phillips methodically searched the small station, Sheriff Davis lowered his voice. These feds showed up yesterday. Very interested in your section of the forest. Everything okay out here, Mike? Mike poured coffee for both of them. Quiet as always, just how I like it. Phillips emerged from the bunk room, eyes sharp. Beds were recently used, Mike nodded. I crashed for a few hours during the worst of the storm. Jessica sometimes uses the other bunk on long shifts. The agent's gaze lingered on the children's cereal box Mike had forgotten to hide. Live alone, Ranger Holden? Since my wife died. 6 years now. The truth made the best cover for a lie. Phillips' radio crackled. One of the tactical team outside reported nothing unusual around the perimeter. Mike carefully controlled his relief. Your personal vehicle, Phillips continued. The Jeep registered in your name. Where is it? Mike didn't miss a beat. Loaned it to my deputy. Her car's in the shop. She's checking storm damage on the South Ridge. Sheriff Davis looked uncomfortable with the interrogation. Agent, if Mike says he hasn't seen anyone... Sheriff, Phillips interrupted smoothly, this is a matter of national security. The phrase hung in the air, absurdly dramatic against the backdrop of the humble ranger station. Mind showing us your patrol logs? Phillips asked. Mike gestured to his computer. While the agent scrutinized his meticulously maintained records, Mike caught Sheriff Davis's eye and raised a questioning eyebrow. Davis gave a small shrug. He didn't know what was really happening either. Everything appears in order, Phillips finally said, though his tone suggested the opposite. He handed Mike a card. Call immediately if you see anyone matching their description. The photo he produced showed Sarah, or someone remarkably similar, in professional attire, her hair different. The child in the photo was clearly Lily. I'll keep an eye out, Mike promised, memorizing the names on the photo, Elizabeth and Hannah Carter. After they left, Mike waited 30 minutes before hiking to his neighbor Jim Blackfeather's cabin. The 70-year-old Vietnam veteran lived off-grid by choice, his property technically outside Forest Service jurisdiction. Trouble? Jim asked, seeing Mike's expression as he arrived. Need. To borrow your ATV and access to your security system. Jim's apparent hermit lifestyle concealed a sophisticated surveillance network covering the main approaches to his property and the ranger station. The old man was paranoid about government overreach, but today Mike was grateful for it. On Jim's computer, they reviewed the footage. After Mike had left for Jim's cabin, the tactical team had returned without Phillips or the sheriff. They'd conducted a more thorough search, downloading data from Mike's computer and photographing everything. Professional, Jim commented. Military training. Not regular law enforcement. Mike watched one man expertly sweep for listening devices. Who are these people? Better question is, who are you hiding? Jim countered. Mike hesitated, then explained about Sarah and Lily. Jim listened without interrupting. The cabin on Black Rock Ridge, Mike finished. They should be there by now. Jim considered this, then stood. Take the ATV faster than hiking, but not directly to the cabin. If they're this serious, they might have satellite surveillance. He disappeared into his bedroom, returning with an old military rifle and a box of ammunition. Jim, I can't. You're not on duty anymore. Mike, that Fed will have your suspension paperwork filed by sundown. Jim pressed the rifle into Mike's hands. These aren't people who follow rules. Plan accordingly. As Mike prepared to leave, Jim's ancient printer produced a grainy image from the surveillance footage. One of the tactical team members speaking into a radio, his jacket open to reveal a shoulder holster. These aren't witnesses they're looking for, Jim said gravely. They're hunting them. The Black Rock Ridge cabin was more isolated than most Forest Service properties, accessible only by a steep trail that vehicles couldn't navigate. Mike approached cautiously, taking Jim's advice to circle widely through dense underbrush. The ATV was hidden a mile back under a camouflage tarp. As the cabin came into view, Mike noted with approval that no smoke rose from the chimney despite the spring chill. Sarah was being careful. He whistled a distinct pattern, two short, one long, before approaching. Sarah appeared at the window, Lily's small face briefly visible behind her. "It's clear," he called softly. "For now." Inside, the small cabin was neat and sparsely furnished. A kitchenette, a sitting area with a wood stove, and two doors leading presumably to bedrooms. Sarah had arranged their meager supplies with military precision. "You weren't followed?" she asked immediately. Mike shook his head. "Took precautions. But we need to talk." He set Jim's rifle on the table, causing Sarah to step protectively in front of Lily. "I'm not here to threaten you," Mike clarified. "But I need to know what I'm involved in. The men looking for you aren't ordinary law enforcement." Sarah's shoulders sagged slightly. She guided Lily to the small bedroom. "Why don't you draw another picture, sweetheart? The ranger and I need to talk." When the door closed, Sarah turned to Mike. "Your name is Michael Holden, former Denver PD, transferred to Forest Service after your wife died in a home invasion. You live alone, keep to yourself, have a spotless record." Mike stiffened. "How do you—" "I looked you up while you were unconscious last night." "I wasn't unconscious. You fell asleep in your chair for 20 minutes. It was enough." Sarah's eyes held no apology. "I had to know who was helping us." Mike felt a chill despite himself. "This woman was not what she seemed. Your turn," he said. "Who's Elizabeth Carter?" Sarah's face revealed nothing. "A cover identity. Not my real name either. And the people hunting you? Private security with government connections." She hesitated. "I worked for Northvale Pharmaceuticals as a research compliance officer. I discovered irregularities in their trial protocols. What kind of irregularities justify this kind of pursuit?" Sarah opened her backpack and removed a prescription bottle. The label was partially scratched off, but the name NV-27 was still visible. "Human trials without consent. Deaths covered up as unrelated accidents. Bribes to FDA officials." Her voice remained steady, but her hand trembled slightly. "This drug was fast-tracked for approval despite known cardiac side effects." Mike examined the bottle. "And Lily?" "My daughter witnessed something she shouldn't have. A conversation between executives discussing how to handle whistleblowers." Sarah's composure finally cracked. "They mentioned making problems disappear along with their families." A sudden noise from outside brought them both to alert. Mike moved to the window, staying to the side as he peered out. "Just a deer," he confirmed, but remained tense. "These people, they identified themselves as federal agents." "Some are. Northvale has government contracts worth billions. Military applications of their research." Mike processed this. His simple act of kindness had dropped him into something far bigger and more dangerous than he'd imagined. "Your ranger station has been compromised," Sarah said quietly. "Going back means arrest at best. They'll find a way to discredit you, possibly frame you. It's their standard procedure. You've seen this before?" Sarah's eyes met his. "I'm not the first person who's tried to expose them." From the bedroom, Lily called for her mother. Sarah moved to the door but paused. "You should leave us. Take your vehicle and report it stolen. Say we held you at gunpoint. It might give you a chance at your normal life." The offer was logical, a clean exit from a situation spiraling beyond control. But Mike found himself shaking his head. "There's something else you should know," he said, pulling out his phone to show her the news alert he'd received on the way to the cabin. "They're saying you killed a security guard during your escape from the Northvale facility. There's a nationwide warrant for your arrest." Sarah's face drained of color. "That's not possible. No one was hurt when we left. Surveillance video shows someone matching your description. The media is running with it." Mike put his phone away. "I think you're being framed. And I think I'm already in too deep to walk away." Outside, the gathering dusk brought a heavy stillness to the forest. Something fundamental had shifted. Their time was running out. The cabin's emergency radio crackled to life just after midnight, startling Mike from his light sleep on the couch. Jim Blackfeather's gruff voice came through. "Perimeter breach at station. Sweep teams heading toward ridge trails. 6 men armed. Not Forest Service or local law. Over." Mike grabbed the radio. "Copy. How long?" "Over. 20 minutes out from your location if they maintain current pace. Good hunting, out! Sarah emerged from the bedroom already dressed, her backpack in hand. We heard. Mike moved efficiently, gathering essentials. We need to move deeper into the forest. There's a network of caves 2 miles north. Difficult terrain. Lily appeared, clutching her stuffed wolf toy, eyes wide with fear she was too practiced at hiding. Are the bad men coming again? Sarah knelt before her daughter. Yes, but Ranger Mike knows this forest better than they do. We'll be okay if we listen to him. Mike appreciated her calm demeanor. We'll leave in 5 minutes. Only take what you need to survive. As Sarah prepared Lily, Mike scribbled a note and left it prominently on the table. If search teams found the cabin, they'd assume the fugitives were headed west toward the state line, the opposite of their actual route. They slipped into the forest under a moonless sky. Mike led with a red-filtered flashlight that preserved their night vision while remaining difficult to spot from a distance. Sarah carried Lily when the terrain became too difficult for the child's short legs. There's a ridgeline ahead, Mike whispered after 30 minutes of silent hiking. Once we cross it, the caves are in the valley beyond. A faint sound stopped them, the distinctive crack of a branch breaking under weight. Not an animal. Too deliberate. Mike extinguished the light immediately, pulling Sarah and Lily behind a fallen tree. He placed a finger to his lips and pointed to his ear. Listen, tactical movement, professional. At least 2 people flanking their position. They shouldn't have found us this quickly. Sarah breathed, barely audible. Mike's mind raced. The cabin was still hidden, the note untouched. Unless... The realization hit him as a small red dot appeared on Sarah's chest. Laser sight down! Mike lunged, pushing her and Lily flat as the shot cracked through the forest. Silenced, but still audible in the night stillness, Mike rolled, bringing up Jim's rifle in one fluid motion. His police training returned instantly. Identify target, assess threat, squeeze trigger. The dark figure dropped. Run! He commanded, providing covering fire as Sarah scooped up Lily and sprinted toward the ridge. The second attacker circled wide. Mike caught movement to his left and fired twice more before retreating. No time to verify the hit. He caught up to Sarah at the ridgeline. Below, a steep slope led to the cave network. They tracked the cell phone, Mike realized. The one I gave you at the station. Sarah's eyes widened. It's still in the Jeep. We never used it. GPS. They're tracking my vehicle. The pieces fell into place. We need to split up. No. Sarah clutched Lily tighter. Trust me, Mike insisted. Let's take Lily to the caves. Second opening on the right leads to a chamber with an underground spring. Wait there. What are you going to do? Lead them away. Create a false trail. Mike handed her the rifle. Take this. Do you know how to use it? Sarah handled the weapon with unexpected familiarity. Yes, no time to question that. Mike retrieved something from the attacker he'd shot, a butterfly knife with a distinctive emblem etched into the handle. Not government, he confirmed. Private contractors, mercenaries. Shouts echoed in the distance, the main search team closing in. Go now, Mike urged. I'll find you by dawn. Sarah hesitated, then pulled a small object from her pocket, a flash drive. If something happens to me, this contains everything. Evidence, names, dates. Get it to someone who can make it public. She pressed it into his hand, then surprised him with a quick, fierce kiss. Stay alive, Ranger. Mike watched them disappear down the slope before turning in the opposite direction. He pocketed the flash drive and the knife, then deliberately left obvious tracks, heading west. The pursuers would follow the more experienced target first, basic tactical priority. Every minute they chased him was another minute Sarah and Lily moved deeper into his forest. And in his forest, Mike Holden was far from helpless. Dawn broke over Blackwood Forest with pale, hesitant light. Mike had led his pursuers on a circuitous route through the most treacherous terrain, before doubling back through a streambed to mask his trail. His decades-old knowledge of the forest's hidden game, trails and seasonal water crossings had kept him alive through the night. The 4 men tracking him were skilled, military, backgrounds evident in their movement patterns, but they lacked his intimate knowledge of this wilderness. Twice they'd almost cornered him. Twice he'd slipped away by exploiting the land's natural features. Now, soaking wet and exhausted, Mike navigated toward the cave system. His ranger's compass, a gift from Claire on their 10th anniversary, guided him when the dense canopy obscured the rising sun. The compass had seen him through countless wilderness searches and rescues. Today, it might save 3 lives. He paused at a rocky outcropping, checking for pursuers before continuing. The search teams had split up overnight, 2 men still doggedly following his trail, while others presumably hunted for Sarah and Lily. Mike hoped the cave system had kept them hidden. The cave entrance was concealed behind a natural formation of boulders. Mike slipped inside, moving carefully through the narrow passage. The darkness enveloped him, comforting after hours of exposure. "Sarah," he called softly, movement deeper within than Sarah's voice. 372, the code they'd established, their birth months. Mike answered, 5. Sarah emerged from the shadows, rifle ready until she confirmed his identity. Relief flooded her face. "You made it." "Barely." Mike sank onto a rock ledge, muscles protesting. "They're good. Professional trackers." "Lily's sleeping," Sarah whispered, gesturing toward the inner chamber. She was exhausted. Mike took the water bottle Sarah offered, drinking gratefully. "I got 4 of them to follow me west. Lost them at Sawyer's Creek, but they'll regroup by mid-morning." Sarah studied his face in the dim light, filtering through cracks in the cave ceiling. "You're injured." Mike touched his temple, feeling dried blood from a grazing shot he'd barely noticed in the night's adrenaline. "It's nothing." Sarah retrieved a first aid kit from her backpack, smart enough to prioritize medical supplies when fleeing. As she cleaned the wound, Mike observed her methodical efficiency. "You've done this before," he noted. Sarah's hands paused briefly. "My father was military. He taught me survival skills. Not the whole truth, but Mike let it pass. They had more immediate concerns. "We need a new plan," he said. "They've got technology, manpower, and now they're calling in helicopters." I heard the radio chatter. "Air support?" Sarah's composure slipped. "They must be desperate or determined." Mike pulled out his compass, opening the hidden compartment in its base to reveal the small photo of Claire. He touched it briefly, a habit when facing difficult decisions before refocusing. "There's an old fire watchtower on Carson Peak," he explained. "It has a long-range radio we could use to contact outside help. Who would we call?" "They've likely compromised local authorities." "Not everyone." Mike thought of his former partner from Denver PD, now a detective with the state police. "I have someone who might listen. The tower's our best chance for communication without electronic surveillance." Sarah considered this. "How far?" 8 miles. "Difficult terrain. We'd need to travel light. Fast." "Lily can't move that quickly," Sarah said, glancing toward the chamber where her daughter slept. Mike hesitated before offering the option he'd been considering since midnight. "Jim Blackfeather, my neighbor. His cabin is secure off-grid, and he has resources. He could keep Lily safe while we make for the tower." The suggestion of separation clearly troubled Sarah, but practicality won out. "Can you trust him with her life?" "With mine. As many times." Mike's certainty was absolute. He was Special Forces in Vietnam. His security systems are better than most military installations. Sarah's internal struggle played across her face before she nodded once, decisively. "When do we move?" "Dusk. Better coverage, cooler temperatures for traveling." Mike leaned back against the cave wall, wincing as his overtaxed muscles protested. "We should rest while we can." As if on cue, a small voice called from the inner chamber. "Mummy?" Sarah moved immediately toward her daughter. Mike watched them, the weight of responsibility settling deeper onto his shoulders. Every decision now could mean life or death. He turned the compass over in his hand, the needle pointing steadily north, while his thoughts circled endlessly around one question: how far was he willing to go to protect them? Twilight settled over the forest as Mike led Sarah and Lily through a nearly invisible game trail. They moved silently, Mike pausing occasionally to listen for pursuit. Lily had been brave beyond her years, following instructions without question. "How much farther?" Sarah whispered, adjusting Lily on her hip. "Quarter-mile," Mike responded. "Jim's property starts at that ridge." As they approached Jim Blackfeather's cabin, Mike whistled their agreed signal. The old veteran appeared at his door immediately. "Rifle casually visible. Brought company," Mike called softly. Jim's weathered face remained impassive as he assessed Sarah and Lily, his dark eyes sharp despite his 70 years. "Missed nothing inside," he said simply. "Perimeter sensors are clear for now." The cabin's interior belied its rustic exterior. Multiple computer monitors displayed security camera feeds and topographical maps. A communications array occupied one corner. Jim had never fully left his military background behind. "Your ranger station's swarming with those private contractors," Jim reported, offering them water. "They've established a command center, brought in specialized equipment." "Looking for us," Sarah murmured. Jim's gaze sharpened. "You must be valuable." "Not me," Sarah replied. "What I know." While Lily explored the cabin under Sarah's watchful eye, Mike explained their situation and planned to reach the fire tower. "Suicide," Jim pronounced flatly. "They'll have satellite thermal imaging, probably drones." "We need that radio," Mike insisted. "My old partner at the state police won't help if you're dead." Jim unrolled a map across his table. "Towers here, but there's a militia training ground 3 miles east. Friend of mine runs it. Ex-military, hates government overreach. Has satellite communication equipment." Mike considered this. "Would he help us? For the right price?" Jim nodded toward Sarah. "If what she has is as explosive as you say, Ellis would consider it payment enough. He lives for exposing government conspiracies." "It's not a government conspiracy," Sarah interjected. "It's corporate with government connections," Jim shrugged. "Even better." Lily approached, drawn by Jim's collection of carved wooden animals. The old man softened visibly, selecting a small wolf figurine that matched her stuffed toy. "For you," he said gruffly. "For a spirit, protection." Lily accepted it solemnly. "Thank you." While Jim showed Lily his carvings, Mike led Sarah to the cabin's back room, where hunting equipment lined the walls. He selected a steel jaw trap from a dusty collection. "These were Jim's grandfather's," Mike explained, checking the mechanism. "Illegal now, but still effective." Sarah understood immediately. "For the pursuit teams?" Mike nodded. "I don't like it, but we're beyond playing by rules." He gathered several more traps and a coil of thin wire. "Jim can protect Lily, but we'll need every advantage on the trail." "I've seen what these men do to whistleblowers," Sarah said quietly. "They won't take prisoners." Mike packed the hunting supplies into a canvas bag. "Neither will I. Not anymore." The weight of the statement hung between them. Sarah studied him. "You're crossing lines you never thought you would. To protect you and Lily." "Yes." Mike's certainty surprised even himself. They rejoined Jim and Lily in the main room. Jim had prepared backpacks with essentials: water purification tablets, energy bars, first aid supplies, ammunition. "We'll leave at full dark," Mike decided. 2 hours from now." Jim nodded. "I've got cold weather gear. Nights get below freezing on the North Ridge." As they prepared, Mike noticed Lily growing increasingly withdrawn. The constant movement and danger were taking their toll. "Hey," he said gently, kneeling to her level. "You know what rangers do in the forest?" She shook her head. "We protect things. Trees, animals, people who visit. And right now my job is to protect you and your mom." Lily considered this. "Like a superhero?" Mike smiled. "Not quite that cool. But I promise I'll keep your mom safe. Pinky promise." Lily extended her small finger. Mike completed the solemn ritual. "Pinky promise." Later, as Lily napped in Jim's spare room, Sarah approached Mike. "She trusts you completely." "Kids have good instincts," Mike replied. "So do I." Sarah hesitated. "There's something I need to tell you before we leave. About who I really am." But Jim interrupted, his voice tense. "Movement on the perimeter sensors. 2 miles out and closing." Mike was immediately alert. "How many?" "Heat signatures suggest 5, maybe 6. They found your trail faster than expected." Mike and Sarah exchanged glances. Their timeline had just collapsed. "Change of plans," Mike said, grabbing the bag of hunting traps. We need to go now. Take the tunnel, Jim instructed, sliding aside a bookcase to reveal a narrow passageway. Cold War paranoia has its uses. Mike stared at the hidden exit. You never mentioned this. Never needed it before. Jim handed him a small device resembling a rugged smartphone. Satellite phone, encrypted, military surplus. Number for Ellis is programmed in. Sarah already had Lily bundled up, the child sleepy but cooperative. Will you be okay? She asked Jim. The old veteran checked his rifle with practiced ease. Been waiting 30 years for someone to try me. Got motion-triggered defenses that'll slow them down. His eyes softened briefly as he looked at Lily. You just keep her safe. The tunnel was narrow but tall enough to walk upright, reinforced with timber supports and illuminated by small emergency lights. It sloped gradually upward, comes out a quarter-mile north under a false rock outcrop, Jim explained. They won't expect you to emerge behind them. Mike clasped the old man's shoulder. We'll send help when we can. Jim's weathered face creased in a rare smile. Just make those bastards pay for trespassing on my property. The tunnel took 10 minutes to traverse, ending at a camouflaged hatch. Mike listened carefully before pushing it open to reveal night sky above. They emerged into a small clearing surrounded by dense pines. This way, Mike whispered, leading them northeast, away from both Jim's cabin and the approaching search team. They moved swiftly through the darkness, Mike pausing only to set 3 of the hunting traps along their back trail. With luck, the pursuers would follow their original trail to Jim's cabin before realizing they'd changed direction. An hour into their journey, a distant shout followed by gunfire echoed through the forest. Sarah clutched Mike's arm. Jim, we'll be fine, Mike assured her, though uncertainty gnawed at him. He's been preparing for this kind of fight his whole life. They pushed on through increasingly difficult terrain. When Lily became too tired to continue, Mike carried her on his shoulders, the child's small hands gripping his hair for balance. Near midnight, they reached a rocky escarpment that offered temporary shelter and a vantage point. While Sarah got Lily settled in a protected hollow, Mike pulled out Jim's satellite phone. Time to call Ellis, he said, but paused when he saw Sarah's expression. What is it? Before we involve anyone else, there's something you need to know. Sarah took a deep breath. I'm not just a corporate whistleblower. I'm FBI. The revelation hung in the cold night air between them. Undercover, she continued, investigating Northvale Pharmaceuticals for the past 18 months. But something went wrong. Someone in the Bureau compromised the operation. Mike processed this, pieces falling into place. That's why you couldn't go to authorities, Sarah nodded. When I discovered Northvale was conducting unauthorized human trials with military applications, I reported to my handler. The next day, my cover was blown, and security teams came for me and Lily. And Lily, is she really your daughter? Yes, Sarah's voice softened. The Bureau wanted me to leave her with my sister during the assignment. I refused. Single mother was part of my cover anyway. Mike studied her face, searching for deception and finding none. Why tell me now? Because before you call for help, you need to understand the risk. I don't know how high this goes, who's been bought. The wrong call could bring more enemies instead of allies. The satellite phone felt heavier in Mike's hand. Ellis isn't law enforcement. He's militia, anti-government, which might make him safer right now. Sarah touched his arm. I'm trusting you with our lives, Mike. You've earned that trust. Mike dialed the program number. After 3 rings, a gruff voice answered. Who's this? Jim Blackfeather sent me. We need extraction and secure communications. A pause. Password? Mike froze. Jim hadn't mentioned a password. Wounded knee, Sarah said suddenly. Mike repeated it into the phone. Another pause, then. Jim's compromise phrase is Red Cloud. You're good. What's your position? Mike described their location using topographical markers. Can reach you by dawn. 3 of us. Come armed. Jim okay? Unknown. Hostiles reached his cabin. A string of colorful curses followed. Change of plan. We'll check on Jim first, then find you. Keep moving northeast. There's a hunting blind at Elk Ridge, stocked with supplies. Can you make it? Yes. Use the phone only in emergency. They might be monitoring frequencies. The call ended abruptly. Mike tucked the phone away and rejoined Sarah and Lily. "Help's coming," he said. "But we're on our own until dawn at least." Sarah nodded, adjusting the blanket around the now sleeping Lily. "What now?" "We keep moving. There's a hunting blind a few miles ahead. Defensible position with supplies." As they prepared to depart, a faint sound reached them, the unmistakable whoomp-whoomp of helicopter rotors in the distance. "They're bringing in air support," Mike said grimly. "Night vision, thermal imaging." Sarah looked at her sleeping daughter, then back to Mike, determination hardening her features. "Then we'd better get creative about staying invisible." The helicopter's searchlight cut through the forest canopy like an accusing finger probing the darkness. Mike, Sarah, and Lily lay motionless beneath the emergency thermal blanket he'd pulled from his pack, their bodies pressed to the cold ground in a shallow depression. "Stay still," he whispered as the light passed over them. The metallic blanket, designed for wilderness survival, now served to mask their heat signatures from thermal imaging. Lily trembled against her mother but remained silent, understanding the stakes with a child's intuitive grasp of danger. The helicopter hovered nearby for several agonizing minutes before moving on, its rhythmic pounding fading gradually. "That was close," Sarah breathed, her relief palpable in the darkness. Mike carefully folded the thermal blanket. "They're using a coordinated search grid. We need to keep moving between passes." They continued their journey through the moonless night, Mike leading them through the most densely forested areas to minimize exposure. The going was slow. Fallen logs, hidden sinkholes, and tangled underbrush created a natural obstacle course that was treacherous even for an experienced ranger. Lily stumbled frequently, exhaustion evident in her drooping shoulders. When she nearly fell into a ravine, Mike lifted her onto his back without comment. Her small arms circled his neck, her cheek resting against his shoulder as she drifted in and out of an uneasy sleep. "You're good with her," Sarah observed quietly as they navigated around a large deadfall. "Had a niece about her age," Mike replied. "Before Claire died, we used to take her camping." "What happened?" "After Claire, I mean." Mike was silent for several steps. "Withdrew, cut ties. The grief counselor called it pathological isolation. I called it survival. And now," he adjusted Lily's weight on his back, "now I remember why isolation isn't the same as living." The hunting blind appeared just before dawn, a small, elevated structure nestled among the upper branches of an ancient pine. Mike helped Sarah and Lily climb the wooden ladder, then secured it behind them. Inside, the blind was Spartan but adequately provisioned. A propane heater, bottled water, dried food, ammunition, and basic first aid supplies were neatly organized on built-in shelves. A narrow bench lined 3 walls beneath shooting windows that offered clear sightlines in all directions. While Sarah got Lily settled with food and water, Mike surveyed their surroundings through binoculars. The rising sun revealed their position at the edge of a small clearing. Beyond stretched more forested mountains, the terrain growing increasingly rugged toward the northeast. "No sign of pursuit," he reported. "But they'll expand the search area soon." Sarah joined him at the window. "The satellite phone? Better wait. Use it only when necessary. And Jim?" Mike's jaw tightened. "We'll know when Ellis reaches us." They settled into an uneasy waiting game. Lily fell into exhausted sleep almost immediately, curled on a sleeping bag in the corner. Sarah checked her daughter's temperature with the back of her hand, a reflexive maternal gesture that seemed incongruous with her revelation as an FBI agent. "How does a federal agent end up undercover at a pharmaceutical company?" Mike asked, keeping his voice low. Sarah's eyes remained on her sleeping child. "I was originally Justice Department Corporate Fraud Division. Noticed patterns in North Vale's financial reports. When evidence suggested experimental military applications, FBI took over." She looked up. "I volunteered for the undercover assignment. Risky with a child. Single mothers aren't suspicious in corporate America. We're too busy surviving to cause trouble." Her smile was brittle. "Perfect cover, until it wasn't." Mike offered her water from his canteen. "The higher-ups who betrayed you. Any names?" "Deputy Director Callahan was my main contact. But the leak could have come from anywhere. Justice, DEA, even Pentagon liaisons. Northvale has military contracts worth billions." A distant sound interrupted them, the helicopter returning, its approach deliberate and methodical. Mike grabbed the thermal blanket. "They're using a different search pattern. Coming straight for us." Sarah woke Lily gently. "Sweetheart, we need to be very quiet again." Mike extinguished the propane heater and covered the three of them with the thermal blanket. Their bodies pressed together on the blind's wooden floor. The helicopter passed directly overhead, its downdraft rattling the structure. Through a gap in the blanket, Mike watched the searchlight sweep methodically across the clearing. Then, instead of continuing on, the helicopter began circling their position. "They know we're here," he whispered. "Something's giving us away." Sarah's eyes widened. "The satellite phone. If they're monitoring frequencies." Mike reached for his pack, but it was too late. The helicopter's spotlight fixed directly on the hunting blind, pinning them like insects on display. Over the deafening rotor wash came an amplified voice. "This is the FBI. We have the structure surrounded. Come out with your hands visible." Sarah and Mike exchanged glances of alarm. "FBI?" Mike questioned. "Not my people," Sarah replied grimly. "Not anyone we can trust." "Options?" Sarah whispered. Her body protectively curved around Lily's. Mike's mind raced through scenarios, none favorable. "They have high ground advantage and air support." The helicopter spotlight remained fixed on the blind, its harsh glare penetrating the wooden slats. Below, shadowy figures moved through the trees, surrounding their position. "Sarah Carter, Michael Holden," the amplified voice continued. "We know you're in there. Surrender peacefully for your safety and the child's." Sarah flinched at their use of her cover name. Confirmation these were Northvale's people, not legitimate FBI. Mike's hand found hers in the darkness. "We're not surrendering," he assured her. "Not to them." The voice outside grew impatient. "You have 30 seconds before we take action." Mike scanned the hunting blind desperately. There had to be something they'd missed, some advantage they could leverage. His gaze fell on a worn section of floorboard beneath the ammunition shelf. "Help me," he whispered, crawling toward it. Together they shifted the shelf, revealing a rectangular outline in the wooden floor. Mike dug his fingers into a nearly invisible seam and pulled, exposing a trapdoor and a rope ladder descending into darkness. "Ellis's people think of everything," he breathed. Sarah woke Lily gently. "Sweetheart, we're going on an adventure." "Like hide and seek." Mike gestured for Sarah to go first. "I'll bring Lily." Sarah hesitated only briefly before descending. Mike helped Lily onto the ladder, then grabbed essentials: the thermal blanket, satellite phone, water, and Jim's rifle. "Hold tight to the ladder," he instructed Lily. "I'm right behind you." As Lily's small form disappeared through the trapdoor, the helicopter's loudspeaker blared, "10 seconds remaining!" Mike paused only to secure the trapdoor behind them, plunging them into complete darkness as bullets began thudding into the blind above. The ladder ended about 15 feet down. Mike's boots touched solid ground, a tunnel, judging by the earthy smell and confined space. He switched on his flashlight, revealing a roughly hewn passage, reinforced with timber supports. "Which way?" Sarah asked, holding Lily close. A crude arrow had been painted on the wall, pointing north. They followed the tunnel, bent almost double in places where the ceiling lowered. After several minutes, the passage widened into a small chamber with supplies, bottled water, canned food, ammunition. "Ellis's militia has been planning for something like this for years," Mike observed, examining a hand-drawn map pinned to the wall. "This tunnel system connects to an old mining complex. Extends for miles. Does it show where it comes out?" Mike traced a marked route with his finger. 3 possible exits. Closest is half a mile northeast, emerges in a ravine. Above them, distant sounds of the search team infiltrating the hunting blind filtered through the earth. "They wouldn't stay confused for long. We need to keep moving," Sarah urged. They continued through the tunnel, Mike leading with the flashlight while Sarah carried an exhausted Lily. The passage gradually descended deeper, underground, the air growing cooler and damper. How did you know to look for a trapdoor? Sarah asked as they navigated a particularly narrow section. Didn't, but in my experience, people paranoid enough to build a hunting blind with military-grade supplies usually plan escape routes. The tunnel abruptly split into two branches. Mike consulted the map again. Left fork leads to the ravine exit. Right continues deeper, connects to the mining system. Which is safer? They'll expect us to take the closest exit. Right fork, then, Sarah decided. As they moved deeper into the earth, Lily stirred against her mother's shoulder. "Are we underground?" she asked, her voice small in the darkness. "Yes, sweetheart. Like a secret passage in your storybooks. Is Ranger Mike still with us?" Mike moved his flashlight to illuminate his face. "Right here, kiddo." Lily reached out in the darkness, her small fingers finding his sleeve. "The bad men won't find us down here?" "Not a chance. This is a super-secret ranger tunnel." The lie came easily when it brought comfort to her eyes. They pressed on until reaching another chamber, this one with a ham radio set up and a logbook. Mike examined recent entries. Ellis's people use this as a communication hub, he explained. Last entry was 3 days ago. Sarah set Lily down to rest while examining the radio. "Can we contact them?" "Too risky. Radio frequencies are easier to track than satellite phones." A sudden crash echoed through the tunnel behind them, the distant sound of the trapdoor being discovered. "They found the entrance," Mike said grimly. "We need to move faster." Sarah lifted Lily again. "How much farther to the mining complex?" Mike checked the map one last time before pocketing it. "About a mile. If we can reach it, the tunnel network expands significantly. We might lose them in the labyrinth, and if we can't..." Mike shouldered Jim's rifle. "Then we make our stand where we choose, not where they force us." They continued deeper into the earth, their flashlight casting long shadows ahead, the sounds of pursuit growing steadily behind them. The mining complex opened before them like a cathedral of stone and timber, a vast underground chamber where multiple tunnels converged. Rusty rail tracks ran along the floor, disappearing into distant passages. Mining equipment abandoned decades ago stood frozen in time. Mike swept his flashlight across the chamber. "Perfect. Multiple routes, confusing layout. Which way?" Sarah asked, shifting Lily's weight in her arms. Mike consulted the map. "The northeast tunnel eventually surfaces near a state highway. 5 miles underground. 5 miles?" Sarah looked at Lily, who was barely awake. "She can't—" "I know," Mike interrupted gently. "We need to rest first." They found a small side chamber once used as a break room. Wooden tables, chairs, and lockers remained, covered in decades of dust. Mike checked that the entrance was defensible before helping Sarah make a comfortable spot for Lily using the thermal blanket. While Sarah got Lily settled, Mike explored the lockers, finding an old mining helmet with its light still intact. Remarkably, when he tested the switch, the bulb illuminated with a weak yellow glow. "Battery's nearly shot, but it works," he said, setting it on a table to provide ambient light while conserving his flashlight. "Might buy us 20 minutes. Sarah accepted water from their dwindling supply. "How far behind are they?" "Hard to tell. Tunnel acoustics distort sound." Mike sat heavily, the exhaustion of the past days catching up to him. "Maybe 30 minutes. But they'll move cautiously in unfamiliar territory." "We can't keep running forever," Sarah said quietly, watching her sleeping daughter. Mike nodded grimly. "The flash drive, what exactly does it contain?" "Everything. Clinical trial data showing deliberate falsification of safety results. Internal memos discussing bribes to FDA officials. Most damning is evidence of unauthorized human testing on military personnel. That's what got you burned." "No." Sarah's voice dropped lower. "What got me burned was discovering who was protecting Northvale. Assistant Secretary of Defense Robert Keller. He oversees military pharmaceutical contracts worth billions." Mike whistled softly. "That's cabinet level. Keller was a Northvale executive before his appointment, still owns stock through shell companies. The drug they're fast-tracking, NV-27, enhances combat performance while suppressing emotional response. Perfect for creating more effective soldiers. And the side effects? Cardiac damage, liver failure, psychosis. Sarah's eyes drifted to Lily. They tested early versions on terminal patients at VA hospitals without proper consent. When I uncovered that connection, my cover was blown within hours. The distant sound of voices echoed through the tunnels, search teams communicating as they followed their trail. Getting closer, Mike observed, checking Jim's rifle. We need a plan beyond running. Sarah straightened the satellite phone. If we could reach my former handler, the only person I still trust in the Bureau. Name, Special Agent Thomas Rivera, San Francisco Field Office. We worked together for years before this assignment. Mike retrieved the phone from his pack. Will he believe you over Assistant Secretary Keller? If I can get him the flash drive data, yes. Sarah hesitated. But we'd need a secure digital transmission method, not just a phone call. Mike thought for a moment. Ellis's group might have equipment. If we can reach one of their outposts. The mining helmet's light suddenly dimmed, then went out, plunging them back into flashlight-illuminated darkness. Almost simultaneously, the voices in the tunnel grew louder. Time to move, Mike said, gathering their supplies. Can Lily walk for a bit? Sarah nodded, gently waking her daughter. Just for a little while, sweetheart. Mike studied the chamber's multiple exits. They'll expect us to take the most direct route out. He pointed to a narrower tunnel with partially collapsed supports. So we take this one instead. Looks older, less used. Is it safe? Safer than the men with guns behind us. They slipped into the narrower tunnel, Mike leading with the flashlight kept at its dimmest setting. The passage twisted and descended, the air growing noticeably cooler. Hear that? Mike whispered after several minutes. Sarah paused, listening. Water. Underground stream. Good sign. Means this tunnel might lead to a natural cave system. Lily stumbled, too exhausted to continue. Mike lifted her onto his back without breaking stride, her small arms wrapping trustingly around his neck. Close your eyes, kiddo, he said softly. I've got you. They continued deeper into the mountain's heart, the sound of water growing louder. Behind them, flashlight beams periodically illuminated the main chamber as search teams arrived and began methodically checking each tunnel. They're splitting up to search, Sarah observed tensely. Mike nodded. But they don't know these tunnels either. Every fork, every chamber divides their manpower. The passage widened suddenly, opening into a breathtaking underground cavern with a rushing stream cutting across its center. Natural limestone formations caught their flashlight beam, glittering like diamonds. Underground river, Mike breathed. Not on the map, Sarah scanned the cavern. Is there a way across? Mike pointed to a narrow natural bridge of stone spanning the water. There. And look, another tunnel opening on the far side. As their pursuers' voices echoed from the tunnel behind them, Mike and Sarah exchanged a determined glance. Their path forward was clear, across the underground river and into the unknown. The natural stone bridge was narrower than it had appeared, barely a foot wide in places, with the underground river rushing 20 feet below. Mike went first, testing each step before motioning Sarah and Lily to follow. Don't look down, he advised Lily, who clung to her mother's hand. Just watch where I'm stepping. They were halfway across when flashlight beams spilled into the cavern behind them. Voices echoed, excited at discovering their trail. Keep moving, Mike urged. We're almost there. They reached the far side, just as the first pursuer appeared at the bridge. A shot rang out, the bullet ricocheting off stone inches from Sarah's head. Mike pushed them into the tunnel entrance, then turned and fired 2 precise shots. The man at the bridge fell, his flashlight tumbling into the churning water below. Shouts of confusion erupted from the pursuit team. That won't hold them long, Mike said grimly as they hurried down the new tunnel. They'll find another way across. This passage sloped upward, a good sign they might be nearing the surface. After 10 minutes of climbing, they reached a metal door set into the rock, clearly modern, with an electronic keypad lock. Ellis's people, Mike surmised. Has to be one of their emergency bunkers. Sarah examined the keypad. Any idea on the code? Jim never shared it. Mike studied the door. Too solid to break through. Keypad means electricity, though. They must have power inside. Lily tugged at Sarah's sleeve. Mom, I don't feel good. For the first time, Mike noticed Lily's pallor and the slight tremor in her small hands. Sarah knelt immediately, feeling her daughter's forehead. "She's burning up," Sarah said, alarm evident in her voice. "She needs her medication." "What medication?" Sarah hesitated. "The same one I showed you, NV-27. Mike stared in disbelief. "The experimental drug? Why would she—" "Because I'm not just investigating Northvale," Sarah interrupted. "Lily was part of their early pediatric trials before I knew the risks. When she developed adverse reactions, they were going to remove her from the study and manage the complication. They were going to kill her," Mike realized. Sarah nodded. "I joined the investigation specifically to get access to her treatment protocol. She needs controlled doses to wean off safely. Stopping abruptly causes severe withdrawal." The sounds of pursuit had faded, but Mike knew it was temporary. "They'd find another way around the river. The medicine's in your pack." "Yes, but we're running low. She needs proper medical care." Mike turned back to the keypad. "Standard 4-digit code. Could be anything. Try 1776, Sarah suggested. "Militia groups often use patriotic references." The keypad flashed red. "Incorrect. What about Wounded Knee?" Mike recalled the password Sarah had known earlier. 1890, Sarah supplied. Mike entered it. The keypad flashed green and the door clicked open. "How did you know that password before?" Mike asked as they slipped inside, securing the door behind them. Instead of answering, Sarah helped Lily onto a cot in what appeared to be a well-stocked underground bunker. Solar-powered lights illuminated a space with communications equipment, weapons, food supplies, and medical kits. While Sarah administered Lily's medication, Mike examined the bunker's layout. "Communication setup is impressive. Might be able to reach your handler from here." When he turned back, Sarah was watching him with an unreadable expression. "There's something I need to show you," she said quietly, removing her boot. From a concealed compartment in the heel, she extracted a slim case and handed it to him. Mike opened it to find an FBI badge and identification. "Not Sarah Carter, but Special Agent Catherine Reeves." "You're not undercover FBI," he said slowly. "Your actual FBI? Counterintelligence Division," Catherine confirmed. "Northvale's connections to foreign defense contractors put them on our radar 3 years ago. But the corruption went deeper than anyone expected. Why the deception? Why tell me you were undercover corporate compliance?" "Protection. For both of us." Catherine checked on Lily before continuing. "When I realized someone high-level was compromised, I created multiple cover stories. If you were captured and interrogated, limited information would protect us both." Mike processed this, feeling both understanding and betrayal. "What else haven't you told me?" "Jim Blackfeather isn't just your neighbor. He's former CIA, placed in retirement near strategic locations. Ellis's militia isn't just anti-government. Paranoids. They're a network of former intelligence operatives maintaining alternate infrastructure." The room seemed to tilt as Mike's understanding of the past days realigned. "This isn't just about pharmaceutical corruption," he said slowly. "What are you really investigating?" Catherine's eyes met his, deadly serious. "A shadow network inside our government, selling military secrets to the highest bidder. Northvale is just one piece of a much larger operation. From the communications equipment, a light began blinking. Someone was trying to make contact. Mike stared at the blinking light on the communications console. "Is it safe to answer?" Catherine moved to the equipment, examining frequency indicators. "It's on Ellis's secure channel." She hesitated, then pressed the response button. "Identity confirm." A burst of static, then a gruff voice. "Echo Sierra 19. "Package secured?" Catherine glanced at Mike before responding. "Affirmative." "Status of homestead?" "Compromised." Blackfeather made it out. 3 hostiles down. Rendezvous Delta in 6 hours. Copy. Catherine ended the transmission, shoulders sagging in relief. "Jim's alive?" Mike tried to absorb everything. "You know Ellis's protocols. I've worked with his network before." Catherine checked on Lily, whose color was improving after the medication. "The intelligence community isn't as fragmented as it appears. Officially, Ellis's group doesn't exist. Unofficially, there are backup when official channels are compromised. She moved to a storage locker, entering another code. Inside was a tablet in a ruggedized case, which she activated with her fingerprint. "This is what they're really after," Catherine explained, showing Mike the device. "Not just the flash drive. This contains the complete intelligence file on Operation Silversmith, the codename for our investigation into the Shadow Network." The tablet displayed classified documents, surveillance photos and communication intercepts, a massive conspiracy linking defense officials, pharmaceutical executives, and foreign operatives. 3 years of counterintelligence work, Catherine continued. "We identified 27 compromised officials across defense, state, and intelligence. But someone tipped them off before we could make arrests. And now they're hunting you to silence the investigation." Mike's ranger world of trees and wildlife seemed impossibly distant. "Now hunting us," Catherine corrected. "You're in too deep to walk away." Mike nodded slowly. The moment he'd helped a frightened woman and child in the storm, his life had changed irrevocably. "Why keep this from me?" he asked, the hurt evident despite his understanding. "Operational security. Each person knows only what they need to know." Catherine's expression softened. "And I needed to be certain. The people after us have turned loyal agents before." Before Mike could respond, Lily called out from the cot, "Mom, where are we?" Catherine was immediately at her side. "We're safe, sweetheart." "How do you feel?" "Better." Lily looked around curiously. "Is this another secret place?" "Yes, and guess what? Mr. Jim is okay. He'll meet us soon." Lily's face brightened at this news. She'd grown attached to the gruff veteran during their brief time at his cabin. While Catherine tended to Lily, Mike examined the bunker's security systems. Multiple camera feeds showed the surrounding tunnels, including one revealing their pursuers systematically checking passages near the underground river. "They're getting closer," he warned. "Maybe 2 hours out." Catherine joined him at the monitors. "This bunker has escape tunnels. We need to contact my handler first, then move to the rendezvous point." She activated the tablet again, navigating to a secure communication program. "Agent Rivera needs to see this evidence. With his clearance, he can take it directly to the FBI director, bypassing the compromised chain of command." Mike thought of the Assistant Secretary of Defense she'd mentioned earlier. "How high does this corruption go?" "Not to the top, but high enough to be dangerous." Catherine typed rapidly on the tablet. The drug was just the beginning. Northvale developed it for military enhancement, but the Shadow Network planned to sell it to non-allied foreign powers. "Billions in black market profits," the tablet chimed, indicating a secure connection established. Catherine began transmitting files. "How does Lily fit into this?" Mike asked quietly. Catherine's hands paused. "After my husband died, I took leave from fieldwork. When I returned, I accepted the Northvale assignment because it seemed low risk. Perfect for a single mother." Her voice tightened. "Lily developed migraines. The company doctor enrolled her in what he called a standard pediatric trial for an advanced headache medication, NV-27, a low-dose formulation. By the time I discovered what it really was, she was already experiencing dependency. If she stops taking it abruptly—" Catherine couldn't finish the sentence. Mike placed a hand on her shoulder. "We'll get her proper treatment." The tablet beeped, confirming completed transmission. Moments later, a response appeared. "Evidence received. Secure extraction team authorized." "Coordinates?" Catherine entered the rendezvous location code. The reply was immediate. ETA 0800 hours. Maintain communication blackout until then. That's dawn, Mike calculated. 4 hours from now. Catherine closed the connection and powered down the tablet. "We need to move to the rendezvous point. Delta location is a fire service helipad on the eastern ridge." As they gathered supplies, an alarm suddenly blared from the security console. One of the camera feeds showed a thermal imaging scan penetrating the rock walls. Technology far beyond standard search teams. "Military-grade equipment," Catherine said grimly. "They're scanning for heat signatures." Mike checked the bunker's layout on the wall map. "Which escape tunnel is least likely to be compromised?" "Northeast passage. Leads to a ravine exit. Then we go northwest, Mike decided. They'll expect the obvious route. Catherine nodded approval as she helped Lily prepare to move. Just like in the hunting blind. Mike shouldered his pack, adding supplies from the bunker. 4 hours to extraction. We can make it. But as they moved toward the northwest passage, the security monitors showed multiple heat signatures converging on their position from all directions. They've got all exits covered, Mike observed, watching the thermal signatures multiply on the security monitors. Catherine calculated options rapidly. The main tunnels are compromised. What about maintenance shafts? Ventilation? Mike examined the bunker's schematic map. Here, maintenance access behind the supply cabinet. Connects to a lower level that's partially flooded. Flooded? Catherine glanced at Lily. She can't swim that far underwater. Mike opened a storage locker marked emergency equipment, retrieving 3 compact breathing units. Mining emergency breathers. 15 minutes of air each. Catherine recognized the equipment from FBI tactical training. Enough to get through the flooded section, if we're fast. Mike helped Lily understand how the mouthpiece worked. Like a snorkel, kiddo. Just keep breathing normally. While Catherine gathered essential supplies into waterproof bags, Mike modified the bunker's environmental controls. What are you doing? Catherine asked. Creating false heat signatures. Mike increased the temperature in several empty rooms. Might buy us a few minutes of confusion. Catherine nodded approval, impressed by his tactical thinking. Ready! Mike moved the heavy supply cabinet, revealing a maintenance hatch. The passage beyond was narrow, barely large enough for an adult to crawl through. I'll go first, Mike offered. Lily in the middle, you follow and secure the hatch. The maintenance shaft was claustrophobic, forcing them to crawl on hands and knees through decades of dust and cobwebs. Mike used a red-filtered light to minimize visibility from connecting vents. After 50 yards, the shaft ended at a rusted ladder descending into darkness. Mike went down first, his light revealing a partially submerged tunnel below. Water covered the floor, reaching mid-chest height on an adult. The flooded section starts about 30 yards ahead, he called softly. Gets completely submerged for approximately 20 yards before rising again. Catherine helped Lily down the ladder. We'll need to hold her between us underwater. Lily's eyes widened with fear, but she remained silent, understanding the stakes with preternatural maturity. Just like we practiced, Catherine encouraged, showing Lily the breathing unit again. Count to 20 and we'll be through. They waded through the cold water, which gradually deepened. When it reached Lily's chin, Mike lifted her onto his shoulders. See that light ahead? He pointed to a faint emergency light, marking the far side of the submerged section. That's our target. Catherine double-checked all 3 breathing units. Remember, exhale slowly. Breathe normally. Don't rush and waste oxygen. When they reached the fully submerged section, they paused for final preparation. Ready, Lily? Mike asked. You'll be right between us. I'll hold your left hand. Your mom will hold your right. Lily nodded bravely, eyes wide above her breathing apparatus. 3, 2, 1. They submerged simultaneously. The cold water shocking despite preparation. Mike led the way, pulling Lily gently, while Catherine supported her from behind. Their lights cut weak swathes through the murky water. The submerged passage seemed interminable underwater, every second stretching painfully. Mike felt Lily's grip tighten with anxiety and squeezed her hand reassuringly. Just a little farther. Finally, the passage began to slope upward. Mike surfaced first, quickly helping Lily up. Catherine emerged moments later, all 3 gasping despite the breathing apparatus. You did great, kiddo, Mike praised, helping Lily remove her mouthpiece. They continued through the rising tunnel, eventually reaching dry ground. Mike checked his watch. They'd been in the maintenance passages for 30 minutes. If we keep moving north-northwest, we'll intersect with a vertical shaft that leads to the Forest Service Road, he said, consulting the map he'd memorized. 2 miles from there to the helipad rendezvous. Catherine checked the tablet. 3 hours until extraction. We should make it. As they prepared to continue, a distant boom reverberated through the tunnels, followed by a rumble that shook loose dust from the ceiling. They're blasting, Mike realized. creating new access points, or collapsing tunnels to force us into a specific route, Catherine added grimly. Lily pressed closer to her mother. Are we going to be trapped? No, sweetheart. Ranger Mike knows these tunnels better than they do. Catherine's confident tone belied the concern in her eyes as she met Mike's gaze over Lily's head. Another explosion, closer this time, sent tremors through the rock around them. Small stones and debris rained from the ceiling. We need to move faster, Mike urged. They're systematically sealing escape routes. Catherine helped Lily to her feet. Which way? Mike pointed to a narrow cleft in the rock wall, barely visible in the dim light. Natural limestone formation. Not on any mining maps. Should connect to the vertical shaft eventually, should. 50-50, Mike admitted. But our only option now, as if emphasizing his point, a third explosion shook the tunnel, significantly closer. Cracks appeared in the ceiling, small rivulets of water beginning to seep through. The blasting is compromising the underwater section behind us, Mike warned. Soon this entire level could flood. Without further discussion, they squeezed into the narrow limestone passage, leaving the relative comfort of the man-made tunnel for the unpredictable embrace of natural caverns. Behind them, the rumble of shifting earth and rushing water grew steadily louder. The limestone passage twisted like a snake, forcing them to turn sideways through the narrowest sections. Calcium deposits formed alien shapes in their flashlight beams, beautiful and disorienting. Stay close, Mike cautioned. Easy to get lost in natural cave systems. They marked their route with small cairns of stacked stones, an ancient navigation system in this technological cat-and-mouse game. Behind them, the sound of rushing water grew fainter. Either the flooding had stabilized, or they'd put sufficient distance between themselves and the danger. After 30 minutes of careful progress, the passage widened into a breathtaking cathedral-like cavern. Stalactites hung from the ceiling like stone icicles, matched by stalagmites reaching upward from the floor. A small underground pool reflected their lights, the water crystal clear. Whoa, Lily breathed, momentarily forgetting their peril in childlike wonder. Thousands of years of water dripping, Mike explained, allowing a brief educational moment despite their circumstances. Each drop leaving behind a tiny bit of mineral. Catherine checked her watch. 2 hours 15 minutes until extraction. Which way? Mike studied the cavern. 3 passages branched from the main chamber. He closed his eyes, visualizing the bunker map in relation to their twisting route. Northeast passage, he decided, pointing to the rightmost opening, should lead toward the vertical shaft. The new tunnel started wide, but quickly narrowed. After 50 yards, they encountered a squeeze so tight that Mike had to remove his backpack to fit through. You and Lily can make it, he told Catherine. I'll pass the supplies through. Catherine went first, demonstrating for Lily how to navigate the tight space. The girl followed bravely, her smaller size an advantage for once. Mike handed their packs through, then attempted to squeeze his broader shoulders into the opening. Despite contorting his body, he couldn't fit. It's no use, he called. I can't make it through. We're not separating, Catherine insisted. Mike examined the passage carefully, his light revealing the composition of the constriction, a relatively thin limestone shelf that had partially collapsed, creating the bottleneck. Wait, he called. There's something wedged in the wall here. His fingers found an old tool lodged in a crevice, a rock hammer likely abandoned by some long-ago geologist or mining surveyor. The wooden handle had rotted, but the metal head remained solid. I might be able to widen this, Mike explained, testing the hammer's weight. The stone's not too thick here. He began carefully chipping at the constriction, widening the passage incrementally. Limestone dust filled the air, forcing him to work in short bursts to avoid breathing problems. After 20 minutes of painstaking labor, he'd created enough extra space to squeeze through, though it required an uncomfortable contortion. That's why rangers stay fit, he joked weakly. Brushing limestone dust from his clothes, they continued through the passage, which gradually widened and began to slope upward, a promising sign. The air felt fresher too, suggesting proximity to the surface. Listen, Catherine whispered suddenly. They froze, straining to hear. Voices echoed faintly through the passage behind them, distant but unmistakable. Their pursuers had found their trail. They must have picked up our trail at the flooded section, Mike realized. We need to move faster. The passage eventually opened into another chamber with a vertical crevice along one wall, narrow but navigable. This could be our vertical shaft, Mike said, shining his light upward. The beam caught glimpses of metal rungs embedded in the rock. Old maintenance access. How far up? Catherine asked, studying the darkness above. Can't tell. But it's heading in the right direction. Mike tested the first few rungs. Despite decades of exposure to the damp environment, they held firm. I'll go first to check stability, he said. Lily in the middle again, Catherine behind to secure her. The climb was arduous. Some rungs had rusted through completely, creating dangerous gaps. Mike called out warnings as he discovered them, helping Lily navigate past the hazards. The shaft seemed endless, disappearing into darkness above and below. After what felt like hours, but was likely 30 minutes, Mike's head bumped against something solid. A metal hatch blocked the shaft. End of the line, he called down. There's a hatch, but it might be rusted shut. Can you open it? Catherine's voice echoed from below. Mike braced himself on the ladder rungs and pushed against the hatch with one shoulder. It didn't budge. He tried again, straining until his muscles burned with effort. It's not moving, he reported grimly. The voices below grew louder. Their pursuers were gaining ground. Mike took out the rock hammer, awkwardly holding it while maintaining his precarious position on the ladder. He struck the hatch mechanism repeatedly, each impact sending painful vibrations through his arm. On the 7th strike, something gave way. The hatch shifted slightly. It's moving, he called down, renewing his efforts. With a final thrust of his shoulder, the hatch creaked open. Cool night air rushed into the shaft, the sweetest sensation Mike had felt in days. Stars shone in a velvet sky above. They had reached the surface. Mike hauled himself out, then helped Lily and Catherine through the opening. They emerged on a forested hillside. In the distance, the eastern horizon showed the first faint lightening of approaching dawn. Catherine oriented herself using the stars. The service road should be half a mile that way, she pointed. And the helipad 2 miles beyond. 1 hour until extraction, Mike noted, checking his watch. Behind them, voices echoed from the shaft. Their lead was measured in minutes now, not hours. Forest shadows concealed their movement as they navigated by starlight. Mike led them on a route parallel to the service road, rather than on it. Harder going, but safer from potential ambushes. Every rustle in the underbrush, every snapping twig heightened their vigilance. Mom, I'm really tired, Lily whispered, stumbling over exposed roots. Without breaking stride, Mike lifted her onto his back again. Almost there, kiddo. Just a little longer. Catherine checked the tablet. 40 minutes until extraction. They pushed forward, the terrain growing steeper as they approached the ridge where the helipad was located. Dawn's first pale light outlined the mountains to the east, both blessing and curse, better visibility for them, but also for their pursuers. The shaft exit behind them had bought some time, but Mike knew the tactical teams would adjust quickly. Thermal imaging would track their heat signatures through the forest unless they found a way to mask them. There, Mike pointed ahead where the trees thinned. Service road crosses just ahead. They paused at the forest edge, studying the gravel road cutting through the trees. No vehicles visible, no obvious surveillance. Looks clear, Mike said cautiously. But they could have spotters, Catherine nodded. We cross one at a time. I'll go first, then signal if safe. She darted across the exposed gravel, disappearing into the forest on the far side. After a moment, her flashlight blinked twice. All clear. Mike carried Lily across next, the gravel crunching loudly under his boots. Every sound seemed magnified in the pre-dawn stillness. Once reunited, they continued upward. The slope grew steeper, forcing them to use trees for balance. Lily, despite her exhaustion, moved with determined focus. Helipad should be just over this ridge, Mike said after 20 minutes of climbing. Less than half a mile. A distant sound stopped them, the mechanical growl of engines, vehicles on the service road. "Je," Catherine whispered. They quickened their pace, despite burning muscles and ragged breathing. The ridge crest appeared ahead, silhouetted against the lightening sky. At the top, they paused to get bearings. Below stretched a small clearing with the concrete helipad visible in the center. No helicopter yet, but they still had 15 minutes before the scheduled extraction. "We made it," Catherine breathed, her relief palpable. Mike wasn't as certain. "Too exposed. They'll have this area under surveillance. Options? Approach from the west side. More cover, steeper approach." He pointed to a densely wooded slope. "We wait in the tree line until the helicopter arrives." They worked their way down to the western edge of the clearing, finding concealment among thick underbrush. From their position, they had clear sight of the helipad while remaining hidden. "How will the extraction team find us if we're not on the helipad?" Catherine asked. Mike removed a small mirror from his survival kit. Signal mirror. Standard search and rescue equipment. Catches sunlight or helicopter searchlights. Catherine checked her watch. 5 minutes. Lily sat between them, fighting to stay awake after the night's ordeal. Catherine administered another dose of her medication, their supply now critically low. "When we get to safety," she promised her daughter, "we'll find doctors who can help you get better properly." The distant thrum of helicopter rotors reached them. Growing steadily louder. "Right on time," Mike said, readying the signal mirror. But another sound competed with the approaching helicopter, vehicles arriving at the service road access point to the helipad clearing. "Company," Mike warned as 2 black SUVs and a tactical truck emerged from the trees. Men in combat gear deployed rapidly, taking positions around the clearing perimeter. They knew about the extraction. Catherine realized, horror dawning. "That means your handler might be compromised," Mike finished grimly. Catherine's mind raced through implications. "Or our communication was intercepted." The helicopter appeared over the eastern ridge, a black silhouette against the dawn sky, unmarked, no visible identification. "Is it your extraction team?" Mike asked. Catherine studied it through binoculars. "Can't confirm. No standard FBI markings." The tactical team around the clearing raised weapons toward the approaching aircraft, but didn't fire. If they were hostiles, they'd be shooting, Mike reasoned. "Unless they want whoever's aboard," Catherine countered. The helicopter began its descent toward the helipad. Through binoculars, Mike could make out 2 pilots and what appeared to be armed personnel in the cabin. "Decision time," he said tensely. "Signal them or stay hidden." Catherine watched the armed men surrounding the clearing. "If that's our extraction, it's their only chance to find us. If not," the helicopter hovered 20 feet above the helipad, hesitating. "They're looking for confirmation," Mike said. "It's now or never." Catherine met his eyes. "Use the mirror." Mike positioned the small mirror, catching the first rays of dawn and directing them in 3 deliberate flashes toward the helicopter. The universal distress signal. The aircraft immediately changed direction, banking toward their position in the western tree line. But the movement also alerted the tactical team on the ground, who swiveled toward their hiding place. "They've spotted us," Catherine warned, as shouts erupted across the clearing. The helicopter descended rapidly toward them, hovering just above the tree canopy. A rope ladder unfurled from the open door. "Go," Mike urged, providing covering fire as Catherine helped Lily toward the ladder. The first shots from the tactical team cracked through the dawn air, splintering bark around them. Bullets tore through foliage as Catherine lifted Lily toward the dangling rope ladder. The helicopter hovered precariously, its rotors battling the updraft from the ridge. "I can't reach," Catherine shouted over the deafening rotor wash. A figure appeared in the helicopter doorway and tossed down a Kevlar vest. "For the child," a man shouted. Mike grabbed the vest, quickly securing it around Lily. It swallowed her small frame, but would protect vital organs. He fired another suppressing burst toward the tactical team before turning to Catherine. "I'll boost you both up," he shouted.
"Get her to safety first."
With Mike's help, Catherine managed to get Lily onto the lowest rung of the ladder. The girl clung to it, wide-eyed with terror as bullets whined past. "Climb, sweetheart," Catherine urged. just like the jungle gym. As Lily began ascending, one of the tactical team members emerged from the tree line with a rocket launcher propped on his shoulder. RPG, Mike shouted into his radio. 3 o'clock! The helicopter pilot spotted the threat and banked sharply, swinging the ladder and Lily in a wide arc. The sudden motion nearly dislodged the girl, but she clung desperately to the rungs. Mike took careful aim and fired, dropping the RPG operator before he could launch. But more tactical team members were converging on their position. Catherine had one foot on the ladder when a bullet grazed her arm. She cried out, nearly losing her grip. Mike lunged, steadying her. Go! He insisted.
I'll cover you.
Not without you. Catherine's eyes were fierce despite her pain. Above them, Lily had reached the helicopter door. Strong arms pulled her to safety inside. A man in tactical gear, unmistakably FBI from his insignia, leaned out. Agent Reeves, he shouted. We have your daughter, come on. Catherine started climbing, gripping the ladder one-handed while blood seeped from her wounded arm. Mike provided covering fire until his ammunition ran out. The tactical team was regrouping for a final push. Without ammunition, Mike had no choice but to attempt the ladder himself. He jumped, catching the lowest rung as the helicopter began ascending. A sharp crack echoed across the clearing. Fire erupted in Mike's leg. A sniper's bullet had found its mark. His grip faltered. Catherine, now halfway up the ladder, looked down in horror. Mike! Through waves of pain, he managed to hold on, slowly dragging himself up rung by rung. His wounded leg trailed uselessly below, leaving a crimson trail in the dawn air. The helicopter gained altitude, carrying them away from the immediate danger below. But the sniper wasn't done. Another shot cracked through the morning, this one striking the rope ladder itself, severing one of the support lines. The ladder lurched violently. Catherine managed to maintain her grip, but Mike, weakened by his wound, slipped down several rungs. I can't hold on, he called up to her, his strength fading. Catherine's face appeared above him. Yes, you can. Lily needs you. She reached down, offering her hand. I need you. The helicopter banked toward the eastern valley, putting the ridge between them and the sniper. Mike summoned his last reserves of strength, climbing one agonizing rung at a time until Catherine could grasp his hand. Together with the FBI tactical team member, she pulled Mike into the helicopter's cabin. They collapsed onto the floor as the door slid shut and the aircraft accelerated away from the ridge. Inside, a medical officer immediately attended to Mike's leg wound, while another examined Catherine's arm. Mommy! Lily rushed to Catherine, still swimming in the oversized Kevlar vest. We're safe, baby, Catherine assured her, holding her daughter close with her uninjured arm. We're all safe now. Across the cabin, a familiar face appeared. Agent Rivera, Catherine's handler. Good to see you alive, Reeves, he said, his relief evident. When we lost contact, I feared the worst. The data? Catherine asked immediately. Rivera patted his tactical vest. Secure. We're transmitting to a team at headquarters as we speak. Assistant Secretary Keller was taken into custody an hour ago, along with 3 other officials. Mike winced as the medic applied pressure to his wound. The men at the helipad? Mercenaries on North Vale's payroll, Rivera explained. Former special forces working through private contractors. They intercepted our extraction frequency, but didn't decode the location correctly. Lucky for us, the helicopter banked south, gaining altitude as the first full rays of sunlight spilled across the forest below. Mike found Catherine's eyes across the cabin. So it's over? He asked. She moved to his side, bringing Lily with her. The immediate danger, yes, but the trial, the testimony, the recovery. She glanced at her daughter. That's just beginning. What happens to Mike? Lily asked, removing the oversized vest and draping it across Mike's chest like a blanket. Rivera answered. Your forest ranger is a key witness in a major federal case. And considering he's now technically unemployed after helping you escape, I'd say we owe him a job. Mike managed a weak smile through his pain. I think I've had enough excitement for one career. Catherine's hand found his, their fingers intertwining. Whatever comes next, she said softly, we face it together. The helicopter soared above the mountains, carrying them towards safety as the morning sun transformed the forest from shadowed hiding place to gleaming emerald canopy below. Behind them, Blackwood National Forest kept its secrets, while ahead lay the uncertainty of truth revealed and justice pursued. Together, Mike agreed, squeezing her hand as Lily nestled between them, finally allowing exhaustion to claim her.